Good morning. Good morning and welcome to this beautiful day in New England. Welcome to the virtual service here at First Church Unitarian, Littleton, Mass. We are so happy that you have found us today and are joining us for the service. And we particularly welcome newcomers to our amazing church. My name is Bill Duston, and I am very happy and proud to serve as one of your deacons and as part of the Green Sanctuary Task Force. Please read our Community Matters newsletter, which is available on our website at fculittle.org. I'd like to remind the members that we have a warranted church meeting today, which will take place on Zoom at 11:30 or immediately following today's service, whichever is later. Our Soul Matters theme for October is deep listening, and today's service is entitled Listening to Children. I'd also like to mention that there are still a couple of spots available in our small group ministry groups. Please contact Reverend Lara if you are interested. Thank you. And now, folks, here's the deal. Laurie Grant will read the warrant.
Hi, I'm Laurie Grant, the clerk. First, the voting list is now available on our website. I'm notifying you, the members of First Church Unitarian, that you are lawfully entitled to vote in its affairs, to meet on a Zoom call. The link will be provided after church services on October 18th, 2020 at 11:30 a.m. or immediately following the Sunday service, whichever is later, to act on the following articles. First, to review and accept the minutes from the May 17th annual meeting. Second, to consider a change to Article 10 of the church bylaws, defining the terms of service for the deacons. Third, to consider an addition to Article 18 of the church bylaws to establish and define the terms and restrictions of a clergy fund. Fourth, to consider revisions to Article 20 of the church bylaws required pursuant to the sale of the former church parsonage. Fifth, to act upon the provisional budget from November 2020 through June 2021. Sixth, to allocate the fiscal year 2020 surplus of $36,434.96, $10,000 to the capital fund, $26,434.96 to the general fund. To authorize the treasurer to borrow money, Seventh, to authorize the treasurer to borrow money on behalf of the church. And eighth, to transact any other business which may lawfully come before said meeting. I look forward to seeing you all on the 18th. Have a good day and stay safe out there. Bye.
Good morning. The Prelude today is by composer Nkeiru Okoye, and I wanted to share with you that she is a composer. She's based out of Ohio, and she's been writing a lot in the last couple years. And in 2018, she had a premiere of a two-act kind of an opera musical theater show called Harriet Tubman. And I highly encourage you to check out her webpage and check out other music that she has written. This particular piece is from a set of piano songs, and I'm actually in communication with her right now to get the rest of these songs. So I only have a couple of them from the set, and I hope to be playing them in the near future for you all.
Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It calls us in the silence and through the noise and busyness of our daily lives. It calls us in the brightness of the day and in the darkness of the night, in times of hope and despair. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It doesn't matter what you call it, for it has no name and many different names. The Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of compassion, the Spirit of hope, the Spirit of justice. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It's calling to you and to me. It's calling us to greater wholeness, greater connection, greater service, greater love. It's calling us to heal the brokenness within ourselves, in others, and in the world. It's calling us to live more deeply. It's calling us to beauty. It's calling us to laugh and dance and sing. It's calling us to live through life's pain and sorrow. It's calling us to live courageously and kindly, to speak our truth in love, and to bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. It's calling us into community. It's calling us into the greater life of all. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. The words of John Saxon. Let us worship. This is a time for lighting our chalice and saying the words of our covenant. So I invite you, if you have a candle to light at home, to get ready. And this morning we will be led by Jack Hutchens.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and help one another.
All right, good morning. It's wonderful to have you with us. Welcome to the live online-only worship service of First Church Unitarian in Littleton, Massachusetts. My name is Lara Hoke, and I'm so happy and so lucky to be the minister of this amazing congregation. We're so happy that you found us this morning on YouTube Live, and we hope that you'll continue to join us on Sunday mornings at 10. When we are back together in person, when the pandemic precautions are over, whenever that time may be, if you live close enough, I hope that you'll visit us in person too. But good morning and welcome today. We have a good service, a great service for you. Good, great. All right, so a few thank yous to start us off. Thank you to Bill Duston for doing our Community Matters, and to Chris Ursuline, who puts it out every week. Thank you to Lori Grant for all the work she does as clerk and for reading that warrant. Thank you to Jack Hutchens for doing our chalice lighting and covenant reading this morning. You know, Jack and his brother Sean just turned 8 years old, so happy birthday, Jack and Sean. Thank you to Molly Lozeau and to the choir for our music this morning, always great. Thank you to Karen Tucker-Barisano, who serves on the Religious Education Committee and who is also doing our time for all ages this morning. And of course, thanks to Mike Pillman for helping us out, showing videos and helping us with any technical problems that may arise. And before I hand it over to Molly to introduce the hymn, I just want to share with you that I learned something last night, which is from now on, I won't have to scramble to get you that live YouTube link each Sunday morning, because it turns out you can just go to youtube.com/First Church Unitarian Littleton /live, and it will always show you whatever live video might be happening. It only took me 7 months to figure that out. All right, so with that, I would like to invite Molly to introduce our opening hymn, number 112.
Hello again. As Reverend Laura said, our opening hymn is number 112. If you have the hymnal, feel free to open it up. If not, the words will be on your screen. And I'd like to say that this is myself and special guest Natalie Lozeau helping me with the piano.
Thank you, Molly and Natalie. That was wonderful. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce our Time for All Ages. We actually have two treats for you for our Time for All Ages. First is a short 2-minute video or so of something that happened live and in person on October, I want to say 9th, I believe it was, where some of our kids were able to get together in person and do a great project, and you'll see that in the video. And then after that, we will go straight into the story for our Time for All Ages, which Karen Tucker-Barisano will share, and it's called The Other Way to Listen by Byrd, Baylor. So enjoy.
Well, good morning. The story today is called The Other Way to Listen by Byrd Baylor. I used to know an old man who could walk by any cornfield and hear corn singing. I'd say, "Teach me, just tell me how you learn to hear the corn." "Well," he said, "it takes a lot of practice and you can't be in a hurry." "Well, I have the time." He was so good at listening. Once he heard wildflower seeds burst open, beginning to grow underground. That's hard to do. He said he wasn't just lucky to have been by himself up there in the canyon after rain. He said it was the quietest place he'd ever been. And he stayed there long enough to understand the quiet. I bet you were surprised when you heard those seeds. No, I wasn't surprised at all. It seemed like the most natural thing in the world. Another time, he heard a rock kind of murmur good things to a lizard. I was there. We saw the lizard sunning on a rock, so of course we stopped. And he said, "I wonder how that lizard feels about that rock it's sitting on, and how the rock feels about the lizard." You know, he always asked himself hard questions that take a while to answer. So we leaned against another rock, and a long time passed. "Did you hear that? They like each other fine." I didn't hear a thing. "Well, sometimes everything being right makes a kind of sound. Like just now, it wasn't much more than a good feeling I heard from that old rock." "Were you surprised to hear it?" "Not a bit. It seemed like the most natural thing in the world." "Boy, I wish I heard it too." He said he thought I might someday. He told me about how a friend of his once heard a whole sky full of stars when she was 7. And later on, when she was 83 years old, she heard a cactus blooming in the dark. At first, she didn't know what she was hearing. She found it by just following the sound. There were 20 flowers on one cactus, and they were all white, just like the moon. "Most people never hear those things at all," he said. "Well, I wonder why. I wonder why. They just don't take the time you need for something that's that important." "Well, I'll take the time, but you have to teach me." "Well, I'd like to, if I could. But the thing is, you have to learn it. You have to learn it from the hills, and the ants, and the lizards, and the weeds, and things like that. They do the teaching around here." "Well, can you give me a clue on how to start?" So he said, "Do this. Get to know one thing as well as you can. It should be something very small. Don't start with a big mountain, and don't start with the whole Pacific Ocean. Start with one seed pod, or one dry weed, or one horned toad, or a handful of dirt, or a sandy wash." "I'm going to do the sandy wash," I said. He said he started with one tree, and every morning of his life, when he was young, he climbed a cottonwood and he sat there listening. He said it was worth the time. Trees are very honest, and they don't care much for fancy people. And he said he didn't know of anything he ever did as important as sitting in that tree. "Well, can you tell me everything you can about it?" I said. "Well, you have to respect that tree. or heel or whatever it is you're with, like maybe a horned toad, for example. If you think you're better than a horned toad, you're never going to hear its voice, even if you sit in the sun forever. Don't be ashamed to learn from bugs or sand or anything. Oh, I won't. It's good to walk with people, but sometimes it's good to go alone. That way, you can always stop and listen just at the right time. I'll remember everything, I said, and I did. But nothing worked. I thought there must be something wrong with me, because I only heard wind and quail and coyotes and doves, just things that anyone can hear. And I almost gave up trying. Of course, I still went walking in my hills. And in fact, I used to sing to them. I thought, since they won't sing to me, well, I'll just sing to them instead. The day I'm telling you about now, I was singing this silly song, and it was, "Hello, hills, hello, hills, hello, hills, hello." That was after I had been away for 5 days, and I'd missed those hills. I went out earlier than usual. You know how everything looks new at sunrise. Well, those hills were looking new, and I was just walking where I always walk. But that morning, I kept thinking, here I am. And whatever way I happened to go was always right. I climbed the rocky side, not the path. The rocky side is steeper, but I like it best. And anyway, that's where I found 3 hawk feathers. I stood at the top of the hill where I always stand, and I was looking down. Hello, hills, hello, hills, hello, hills, hello. All I know is suddenly I wasn't the only one singing. The hills were singing too. I stopped. I didn't move for almost an hour. I never listened so hard in my life. Of course, their kind of singing isn't loud. It isn't any sound you can explain. It isn't made with words, and you can't really write it down. All I can say is it came straight up from those dark, shiny lava rocks, humming. It moved like the wind. It seemed to be the oldest sound in the world. And all I can say is I was standing in the middle of that sound at 7 o'clock in the morning and thinking, here I am, and thinking, listen, and not even being surprised because it seemed like the most natural thing in the world. The end, and thank you for listening today.
Thank you so much, Karen. That is so appreciated. What a great story, isn't it? This is our time for sharing our generosity. This is a time, an opportunity, I should say, for generosity. If you are able and if you are willing, we would so appreciate it if you could share some of your treasure with First Church Unitarian in Littleton this morning. Or, of course, you can also send in pledge payments as well as offering. You can either mail in a check to First Church Unitarian, Attention Assistant Treasurer, 19 Foster Street, Littleton, Massachusetts, 01460, or you could go to our website, fculittle.org. And once you're there, there's a yellow donate button. You can click on that button and it will tell you all the ins and outs of donating online, should you decide to do that. We are a self-supporting congregation and your offerings are so appreciated. And this morning's offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation.
The offering song today is Clair de Lune by Claude Debussy, French composer. If you listen to any sort of classical music station or any hits, this will come up on that playlist. So I invite you to enjoy listening to this beautiful music. I also just wanted to make a comment. This is another one that I filmed top down so you can see what's going on at the keyboard.
In preparation for my homilies, I'll often do a Google search just to see what might be out there, get a feel of what might be out there on any given topic, to see if there's some new source or insight on the topic that has come out since I went to seminary so many years ago, or something that came out since the last book I read on the topic. Interestingly, a Google search this week showed me that today is, in fact, the Children's Sabbath for the Children's Defense Fund, which is a wonderful nonprofit that grew out of the civil rights movement under the leadership of Marian Wright Edelman. It's an organization that helps bring about more justice and better living conditions and education for children all over the United States. So that was a bit of serendipity, as it turned out today, or synchronicity, if you like. I actually picked the topic of listening deeply to children for this Sunday because I was trying to honor marginalized voices for our October Soul Matters theme of deep listening. I was trying to focus on listening to those who we too often ignore or relegate to the sidelines of our thinking. And children all too often fall into that category. Children are essentially at the mercy of the adults in their lives and in their respective countries or cities or towns, schools, and so on. They don't really have very many rights. Instead, if they are lucky, they get protections. They don't get a vote. They don't get much say. They are all too often seen and not heard, let alone listened to deeply. They are, in a word, ignored. They are, in a word, vulnerable. But that's only one way to think about or describe children. They are also new. They're fresh. They're full of fresh, new appreciation of the world that we adults have begun to take for granted. They are new residents on this planet. They are inquisitive. They're full of great questions about things so basic and fundamental that we adults don't often notice anymore. So children are also, in a word, wise. They are, in a word, spiritual. Many world religions and indigenous religions honor this special wisdom and unique spiritual essence of children. Today's homily title comes from something from the book of Isaiah in the Hebrew scriptures. The wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. It's an enigmatic, almost haunting, yet lovely vision captured in those verses. In the Gospel of Matthew, in the Christian New Testament, Jesus famously says, "Unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." In the Tao Te Ching, which is the primary scripture of Taoism, there are many references to the advantages of being childlike. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, "In controlling your vital force to achieve gentleness, can you become like the newborn child?" It goes on, "For wise men hear and see as little children do." But I think earth-based and indigenous traditions have pinned this down even better. In some African traditions, newborn children are thought to be especially close to the wisdom of the cosmos, to the wisdom of the universe itself, from which they recently arrived among us here in this life on this planet. As Pierre Ernest summarizes these African traditions, a direct bond exists between the newborn, who still belongs to the cosmos, and the God of heavens, master of natural forces. There are interesting insights from various Native American traditions as well. To give one example, Black Elk, a holy man of the Oglala Lakota Sioux, put it, "Grown men can learn from very little children, for the hearts of the little children are pure. Therefore, the Great Spirit may show to them many things which older people miss." Of course, Eastern religious traditions that have reincarnation, traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, they too see children as occupying that fascinating liminal space as human beings who have just arrived from past lives, maybe from other spiritual realms. Now, in Western religious traditions that have a notion of a heaven, sometimes also a notion of a hell, life is seen in a more philosophically and theologically linear way, with a beginning point and an end point. And so children in these Western traditions are seen as being at the very beginning. So what would they know? But Eastern religious traditions and indigenous traditions have a different spiritual view of children, and there is more of a sense that adults can learn from children even as those children learn from us. Children can help us get in touch with the wonder of it all. They seem to point the way, just naturally and with ease, to that first source of our Unitarian Universalist tradition, direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. Truly, it does seem that children are somehow closer to the cosmos, or the Tao, or source, or God or goddess, if you like, with an innocence that is mystically and mysteriously present. If you've ever had a deep conversation with a thoughtful child about the universe, you will know that they have some interesting insights. Today, I hope that we will consider making the children in our lives and the children of the world the subject of some of our deep listening. They deserve that. They deserve to be heard as well as seen. They deserve to have their thoughts and ideas considered. They deserve to give input into their own worlds. They deserve our protection and our special care. They do. But they also deserve our utmost regard. I want to close by thinking about what it would look like to listen deeply to these wondrous young humans. It would mean giving time and space to listen to children. It would mean asking open-ended questions and listening, really listening to their answers, without judgment, without interruption, without jumping in to offer solutions, or certainly not until that type of intervention is requested. Much of deep listening is being. It is presence and witnessing. It is, as our Time for All Ages story by Byrd Baylor put it this morning, when the old man advises, "You'll have to respect that tree or whatever it is you're with. Take a horned toad, for example. If you think you're better than the horned toad, you'll never hear its voice, even if you sit in the sun forever." Deep listening means respect and not thinking that you're better than the one you're listening to. including, certainly, children. Deep listening means, as Mahatma Gandhi put it, assuming that everyone has a piece of the truth. In my view, children are special messengers from beyond, and they are also special envoys to the future. May we always hold them in utmost, highest regard. May we learn to listen to them deeply. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. I'd like to turn it over now to Molly to say something about our closing hymn.
Our closing hymn today is number 191, Now I Recall My Childhood. I'm happy to say that I have many members of the church choir recorded and compiled together, so you'll be able to sing with a full choir and hear other voices as you sing this hymn. Again, I'll have the words on the screen, and what I like to call this hymn is a story hymn. It's as you go through the verses, you're hearing a story. So sing as you wish, read through, listen, and we're at number 191.
Now I recall my childhood when the sun burst to my bedside with the day surprise. In the marvelous moon, the new each dawn, clouds bursting fresh within my heart each day. And looking on the world with simple joy, on insects, birds, and beasts, and common needs, the grass and clouds had fullest wealth of all. My mother's voice gave meaning to the stars. Now when I turn to think of coming death, I find my song in star songs of the night, in rise of curtains and new morning light, in life reborn in fresh surprise of love.
Friends, again, if we were together in person, we would now form something like a circle in this beautiful sanctuary and hold hands for our closing words. I encourage you, while we are online worshiping, if there's somebody in the room with you and you can safely hold hands now, please do that. And if not, if you're alone in the room, as I'm alone in the sanctuary, I encourage you to just put your hands together and hold them together and feel that warmth. And imagine this beautiful sanctuary and being in this space with some of your special friends, people from this beloved community, as we hear these closing words. Friends, listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. The Spirit is calling us to listen more deeply to others in our worlds. The Spirit is calling us to listen more deeply to people who might think differently. The Spirit is calling us to listen deeply to people who might have ideas and insights and worldviews different from ours, and therefore views that we can learn something from, even when we disagree. The Spirit is calling us to listen deeply to people of all ages, not assuming that we are better than anyone, listening with an open mind, listening with a generous heart, listening with an eye toward the cosmos and the grander picture. We are called to listen to, with our ears and our eyes, the youngest people among us, the children, the youth, who have a gift of bringing us insights, seeing this world anew, coming from the beyond, whatever that might look like. May we listen to them deeply, and may we learn from them as we hold them in our utmost highest regard. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
And the postlude today is Carnival by William Gillock, an American composer who was writing a lot in the 60s, 70s, and 80s for piano. And this is from a book called Accents Around the World, where he explored different melodies and themes that you could potentially hear around the world. This one is centered in South America.